Dear listener, welcome once again to the Hercule Poirot Story Podcast, where the enigmas of the human condition are laid bare by the most perspicacious of minds. This eve, we beckon you to the glittering yet treacherous expanse of Starlight Pier in Blackpool, Lancashire, during the balmy summer of 1935. The pier, a marvel of Victorian engineering jutting defiantly into the Irish Sea, thrums with the gaiety of holidaymakers, its lights twinkling like fallen stars against the velvet night, while a sultry breeze carries the tang of salt and the distant rumble of thunder, foreshadowing tempests both meteorological and moral. Amid this carnival of illusions, a grievous felony has transpired: the slaying of Elias Beaumont, the illustrious illusionist whose feats of prestidigitation captivated throngs. As the waves whisper secrets and the shadows conceal daggers, we entreat you, dear listener, to marshal your own acumen. Proffer your surmises in the comments, for perchance your insights shall aid in dispelling the gloom. Now, let the narrative unfurl. Chapter 1. The Illusionist's Demise. In the effervescent and beguiling milieu of Starlight Pier, which extended with audacious elegance into the restless expanse of the Irish Sea, from the vibrant shores of Blackpool, Lancashire, during the halcyon summer of 1935, the evening had unfolded with an aura of enchanting revelry that masked the undercurrents of malice simmering beneath. The pier itself was a magnificent relic of Victorian engineering, its iron latticework supporting a promenade of weathered wooden planks that creaked under the tread of innumerable feet, stretching forth like a defiant finger into the brine, illuminated by a constellation of fairy lights strung along its length. The structure teemed with holidaymakers. Families clad in their finest seaside attire, children clutching spun sugar confections, and couples entwined in amorous whispers. Amidst the kaleidoscopic burst of amusements, the shrill whistles of barkers hawking games of chance, the mechanical clatter of slot machines disgorging coins, and the distant pop of fireworks painting the indigo sky in ephemeral splendor. The air was a symphony of scents, the sweet allure of fried doughnuts and saltwater taffy, mingling with the tangy brine of the sea breeze, while a sultry warmth enveloped all, punctuated by the low rumble of thunder on the horizon, as if the heavens themselves foreshadowed the tempest of tragedy about to descend. At the pier's farthest extremity stood the opulent Pavilion Theatre, a domed edifice of gilded arches, ornate cornices, and plush velvet curtains that billowed gently in the evening draught, its facade aglow with incandescent bulbs proclaiming the evening's spectacle. Within this theatrical sanctum performed Elias Beaumont, the victim whose abrupt and grisly demise would ensnare the assembled souls in a web of suspicion and deceit. Elias, a man of 46 years, was an illusionist of unparalleled renown, his feats of prestidigitation and escapology captivating throngs from London's West End to the continental cabarets. His physical presence was one of magnetic charisma, aquiline features chiseled with the precision of a sculptor's hand, framed by slicked ebony hair that gleamed under the stage lights, a neatly trimmed goatee lending an air of enigmatic sophistication, and piercing amber eyes that held audiences in thrall, as if peering into the very recesses of their souls. Psychologically, Elias was a consummate maestro of deception, his ego inflated by the adulation of crowds and the accolades of peers, yet undermined by profound insecurities rooted in a vagabond childhood spent in the squalor of travelling circuses. This duality propelled him to hoard secrets, fortunes, and affections with a cunning avarice, often at the expense of those closest to him. fostering enmities that festered like hidden wounds. On this fateful night, as the theatre's clock ticked inexorably toward 9, Elias prepared for his grand finale amid the wings. The auditorium abuzz with anticipation. The house was packed with spectators, their faces upturned in eager expectation, the air thick with the acrid tang of gunpowder from an earlier pyrotechnic display. Adjoining the stage, in the shadowed alcoves and private boxes, lingered the suspects, intimates and rivals, each harbouring motives as opaque as the sea's depths. Lydia Beaumont, Elias's wife of 15 years, hovered backstage with the poise of faded glamour. At 38, she possessed a haunting beauty. Porcelain skin that glowed ethereally under the footlights, platinum curls cascading in artful waves, and violet eyes that masked a profound disillusionment. Once a celebrated stage assistant in her own right, her aspirations had been eclipsed by her husband's meteoric ascent, relegating her to an ornamental role. Her psyche was a turbulent sea of jealousy, roiled by Elias's notorious flirtations with admirers and assistants, nurturing vengeful reveries of liberation, perhaps through widowhood, where she might reclaim her spotlight and the substantial royalties from his illusions. Observing from the stalls with feigned applause was Victor Hale, Elias's chief rival illusionist of 42. Tall and sinewy, with dishevelled chestnut hair that bespoke a bohemian disregard, a hawkish nose shadowing thin lips, and brooding grey eyes that smouldered with unspoken intensity, Victor cut a figure of restrained menace. Once collaborators in their youth, Victor had been overshadowed and discarded when Elias patented their joint creations as his own. His mind was a cauldron of professional enmity, bubbling with schemes of retribution for stolen tricks, sabotaged bookings, and the relentless erosion of his career, motives that could ignite into lethal action. Flitting about the props with diligent vivacity was Miss Amelia Voss, Elias's current assistant of 25. Petite and vivacious, with auburn, ringlets bouncing in rhythm to her steps, freckled cheeks that flushed with exertion, and sparkling green eyes brimming with youthful zeal, Amelia embodied the archetype of starry-eyed devotion. Hired for her agility in the acts, she had developed a clandestine passion for her employer, born of stolen moments amid rehearsals. Her soul was a fragile mosaic, interweaving unwavering loyalty with the poignant anguish of unrequited love, which might, in despair's grip, fracture into desperate folly. Surveying the proceedings from his private box was Mr. Reginald Croft, the Pier proprietor of 53. Portly and ostensibly jovial, with florid cheeks puffed from indulgence, a balding pate gleaming under the lights, and shrewd blue eyes that calculated every farthing, Reginald masked financial desperation beneath his bonhomie. His psychology was that of opportunistic greed. The Pier's waning fortunes, exacerbated by Elias's exorbitant contract demands, had plunged him into debt, fostering resentment that could manifest in calculated elimination to reclaim profitability. Finally, loitering in the shadows near the stage door was Captain Harold Langley, a retired seafarer of 60. Weathered and robust, with a grizzled beard salted by years at sea, scarred hands testifying to maritime toils, and piercing black eyes that scanned like a lookout in a crow's nest, Harold exuded an aura of stoic endurance. Swindled by Elias in a fraudulent investment scheme involving illusory treasure hunts, his psyche harboured a simmering wrath, tempered by naval discipline, but capable of erupting in vengeful retribution. As the performance climaxed with the Sword of Destiny, Elias bound upon a platform, the blade descending in a flourish of smoke and mirrors. A discordant gasp shattered the applause. Elias staggered, blood blooming crimson upon his white tuxedo shirt, the sword, tampered to remain lethally extended, piercing his heart with fatal precision. He collapsed amid the props, life ebbing as the curtain fell prematurely. Lydia was the first to rush on stage, her scream piercing the pandemonium. "Elias! Oh, merciful heavens, no!" Victor rose from his seat, eyes narrowing speculatively. A tragic illusion or deliberate demise? Amelia fainted into the arms of a stagehand, her cries muffled. Reginald bellowed for the constabulary, his florid face ashen. Harold muttered darkly from the wings, "Justice served, perhaps." The local authorities arrived amid the chaos of fleeing spectators, sealing the theatre. Yet the complexity demanded a keener intellect. Hercule Poirot, sojourning in Blackpool for respite, was apprised by telegram and arrived post-haste, his egg-shaped head held high, moustache impeccably waxed, green eyes surveying the scene with unerring acuity. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, examining the bloodied sword. "Murder amid the mirth of illusions. But Hercule Poirot shall dispel the deceptions with the little grey cells." Thus began the unravelling, the peer's gaiety yielding to the sombre tide of inquiry. Chapter 2. Shadows on the Promenade. As the first tentative rays of dawn gilded the intricate ironwork of Starlight Pier, the structure emerged from the night's embrace like a spectral relic, its wooden promenades glistening with dew and the faint residue of the previous evening's revelry. The Irish Sea, ever restless, lapped mournfully against the pilings below, its waves whispering elegies that underscored the sombre pall now draped over the once vibrant edifice. The fairy lights which had blazed with such effervescent gaiety mere hours before now flickered sporadically in the pallid light, casting elongated shadows that danced upon the planks like elusive phantoms. Holiday-makers had dispersed with the constabulary's edicts, leaving the pier isolated, a forsaken stage where the drama of death lingered in the air, mingled with the lingering scents of popcorn and sea salt. Thunder rumbled distantly on the horizon, a harbinger of gathering clouds, as if the firmament itself conspired to veil the truths buried amid the amusements. Hercule Poirot, having arrived amid the nocturnal chaos, commenced his investigation at first light within the Pavilion Theatre. The constable, a burly Lancastrian named Wilkins, his uniform rumpled from the night's exertions, trailing dutifully. The stage, cordoned with makeshift barriers of ropes and crates, retained the macabre tableau of Elias Beaumont's final performance. The Sword of Destiny apparatus, its blade now cleansed of blood, but bearing faint scratches suggestive of tampering. Poirot's piercing green eyes, framed by his impeccably waxed moustache, swept the scene with meticulous acuity. "Observe, mon constable," he intoned, his accent a harmonious blend of Belgian precision and acquired English refinement, the hilt of the sword, adorned with a scrap of velvet fabric, crimson in hue, snagged as if in haste. And here, in the sawdust strewn for dramatic effect, footprints muddied with seawater, implying traversal from the pier's underbelly. Wilkins nodded ponderously, jotting in his notebook, as Poirot continued. A smudged latch on the prop box, blurred as though wiped by a gloved hand, hinting at surreptitious interference. The air hung heavy with the metallic tang of blood, and the faint ozone of the sea breeze infiltrating through cracked windows. Satisfied with his initial perusal, Poirot decreed that interrogations commence forthwith, to be conducted in the theatre's antechamber, a cosy alcove furnished with faded velvet chairs and a sideboard bearing remnants of the performers' refreshments. the morning light filtering through stained glass panels to cast kaleidoscopic patterns upon the floor. Lydia Beaumont entered first, her porcelain beauty undimmed by the ordeal, though dark circles shadowed her violet eyes as she seated herself with composed grace. "Monsieur Poirot," she began, her voice a melodious contralto laced with feigned bereavement, "this catastrophe has shattered our world. Elias was a genius, yet his illusions extended beyond the stage, secrets that perhaps invited such a fate." Poirot inclined his egg-shaped head sympathetically, his moustache twitching as he appraised her. "Madam, the illusions of the heart are the most perilous. Threats, you imply. Elaborate, s'il vous plaît. And your whereabouts during the fatal finale?" Lydia's gaze flickered evasively, a psychological tell that Poirot noted with precision. A suppressed undercurrent of liberation, perhaps satisfaction at emancipation from matrimonial shadows. She proffered an alibi of a solitary promenade along the pier, seeking respite from the theatre's clamour, yet her poise faltered subtly under scrutiny, suggesting concealed motives, financial solace through inheritance, or vengeance for Elias's dalliances, whispered among the troupe. Next came Victor Hale, striding into the alcove with the sinewy grace of a panther, his dishevelled chestnut hair and brooding grey eyes betraying inner agitation as he perched on the chair's edge. Beaumont was a charlatan, he snarled, his voice laced with bitterness. "Stole my best illusions, claimed them as his own, but murder? I'd expose him on stage, not skewer him like a prop." Poirot's eyes narrowed, detecting the fidgeting hands, a sign of anxiety or culpability. Victor's psychology unveiled a man consumed by professional rancour. His career's eclipse had fermented into obsessive hatred, potentially culminating in lethal sabotage. A red herring emerged, Victor's monogrammed glove, discovered near the stage wings, though its placement seemed contrived, as if planted to divert suspicion. His alibi, seated in the stalls, ostensibly critiquing the act, yet unverifiable amid the crowd's throng. Miss Amelia Voss followed, her petite form gliding in with tremulous steps, auburn ringlets disarrayed, green eyes brimming with unshed tears behind a veil of freckles. She collapsed into the chair, her vivacity dimmed. "Oh, sir," she whispered, "Master Elias was everything, a mentor, a marvel. To think he's gone." "Ma petite," Poirot soothed, yet his observation was unrelenting. Her devotion teetered on obsession, a psychological undercurrent that could sour into jealousy if rebuffed. Amelia confessed tearfully to a secret affection, her alibi assisting backstage, witnessed by stagehands, yet her proximity to the props rendered her suspect. The muddied footprints upon cursory match aligned with her dainty boots, though the seawater suggested an external jaunt, a potential misdirection. Mr. Reginald Croft bustled in next, his portly frame squeezing into the chair, florid cheeks flushed with bluster. "Ghastly business, this!" he boomed, his shrewd blue eyes darting. "Beaumont drew crowds, but his demands bled me dry. Higher percentages, exclusive billing. Still, I'd not resort to such barbarity." Poirot discerned the opportunistic gleam in Reginald's demeanour. His psychology was one of desperate greed, the pier's dwindling revenues, exacerbated by the Depression's grip, fostering motives of elimination to renegotiate contracts posthumously. Reginald's alibi, ensconced in his box overseeing the house, yet a servant's testimony placed him backstage earlier, ostensibly inspecting rigging. Finally, Captain Harold Langley shuffled in, his weathered bulk settling heavily, grizzled beard twitching, black eyes piercing like the depths he once navigated. "Beaumont swindled me," he growled, scarred hands clenching. "Invested my pension in his grand tour scheme. Vanished funds, empty promises, but I'd keel-haul him proper, not with stage trickery. Poirot noted the stoic facade masking volcanic wrath. Harold's seafaring past had honed an opportunistic vengeance, his grudge a slow-burning fuse. A timeline inconsistency surfaced. Elias's death pinpointed at 9:05 by his stopped wristwatch, frozen in the struggle, yet applause and gasps persisted until 9:15, suggesting manipulation of the timepiece to fabricate alibis. As the interviews concluded, Poirot ventured onto the promenade, the sea breeze tousling his coiffure as he leaned upon the railing, gazing at the waves' undulating shadows. The thunder grew nearer, clouds amassing like suspicions. The shadows on the promenade conceal the truth, he murmured to himself, stroking his moustache. Velvet from Lydia's gown, Victor's glove, a plant, Amelia's prince, Reginald's debts, Harold's grudge. Illusions abound, but the grey cells shall illuminate. The morning advanced under the gathering storm, the pier's gaiety subdued, as the enigma deepened its hold. Chapter 3. Deceptive lights. The afternoon sun, a languid orb veiled by the encroaching thunderclouds over Starlight Pier, cast a deceptive luminescence upon the promenade, transforming the once vibrant thoroughfare into a realm of flickering illusions, where truths and falsehoods danced like the fairy lights strung overhead. The Irish Sea, its surface roiled by the gathering storm, hurled waves against the pilings with increasing fervour, their crashes echoing the tumultuous undercurrents of suspicion that now pervaded the theatre and its environs. Holidaymakers, deterred by the ominous sky and the constabulary's barriers, had thinned to a sparse trickle, leaving the pier a forsaken expanse where the mechanical amusements whirred desultorily, their gaiety hollow amid the shadow of murder. The air, heavy with the promise of rain, carried the mingled scents of ozone and abandoned confections, as if the elements themselves conspired to wash away the deceptions, or perhaps to illuminate them in stark relief. Hercule Poirot, undeterred by the atmospheric portent, advanced his inquiry with the relentless precision of a lighthouse beam piercing the gloom. Having gleaned preliminary insights from the interrogations, he now delved into the labyrinthine psyches of the suspects, employing his vaunted little grey cells to unearth concealed verities amid the maze of misdirections. The Pavilion Theatre's green room, a cluttered sanctum of mirrors, costumes, and half-eaten trays of refreshments, served as his confessional. But Poirot extended his scrutiny to private quarters and the pier's underbelly, authorized by Wilkins' warrant, where revelations lurked like hidden mechanisms in Elias's illusions. In Lydia Beaumont's dressing room, a boudoir of faded opulence adorned with feather boa and a vanity strewn with cosmetics, Poirot uncovered a leather-bound diary, secreted within a locked trunk, pried open with the constable's reluctant assistance. The entries, scribed in Lydia's elegant hand, chronicled a marriage fraught with discord. Vivid depictions of Elias's infidelities with adoring fans, interlaced with vengeful musings that curdled the soul. "He shall pay for his deceptions," one passage declared, "his stage a scaffold for retribution." Yet, upon closer inspection with Poirot's magnifying glass, the ink in recent annotations appeared inconsistent, fresher, with a subtle variance in hue, suggesting forgery, a artfully planted red herring to implicate the chronicler or divert the gaze from another. Poirot's grey cells hummed. Lydia's psychology, a tempest of jealousy cloaked in glamour, intimated she might orchestrate such a ruse to mask her innocence or amplify her culpability. Physical evidence proliferated, each clue a deceptive light in the investigative firmament. The muddied footprints in the stage sawdust, upon comparison with footwear requisitioned from the suspects, aligned with the dainty tread of Amelia Voss's heeled boots. Yet the seawater residue bore traces of deliberate augmentation, as if the prints had been enhanced post factum, implying a contrived artifact to ensnare the unwary. This misdirection extended to the smudged prop box latch, its oily residue matching a lubricant from Victor Hale's toolkit. Though the smudge's pattern suggested gloved handling, broadening the spectrum of suspicion. Reconvening the suspects for intensified confrontations, Poirot began with Mr. Reginald Croft, summoning him to the Pier's managerial office amid stacks of ledgers and the distant rumble of thunder. Reginald arrived flushed, his portly frame perspiring, florid cheeks deepening as he collapsed into a chair. "Monsieur Croft," Poirot probed, his voice slicing through the humidity like a stiletto. "Your fiscal embarrassments, they furnish a motive as luminous as your peers' illuminations. Debts accumulate like the tide's detritus, and Elias's demise would illuminate your ledgers anew." Reginald blustered, his shrewd blue eyes darting. "Dash it all! Yes, I embezzled a trifle from the till to cover shortfalls. Beaumont's greed left me no choice, but murder, I'd sooner bankrupt the lot than wield that blade." His confession to financial impropriety, while exposing his desperation, served as a red herring. The timeline, corroborated by a ticket-taker's sighting of Reginald in his box during the act, tentatively absolved him, though his greed lingered like the storm's shadow. Captain Harold Langley was next, interrogated on the promenade's edge, where the sea spray misted the air, heightening the sense of peril. Harold stood rigidly, his grizzled beard beaded with moisture. Black eyes unyielding. "You harpooned the truth, detective," he growled, scarred hands gripping the railing. "Beaumont bilked my savings, promised riches from his Grand Illusions tour, delivered naught but empty coffers. I admit to threats in heated letters, vowing to expose his swindles. But stabbing? I'd keel-haul him in open waters, not skulk in shadows." Poirot nodded sagely, detecting the maritime honour warped by betrayal. Harold's admission to epistolary intimidation unveiled a pattern of grudge, yet his alibi, loitering at the stage door, witnessed by a vendor, held steadfast, deflecting blame while deepening the intrigue. Miss Amelia Voss, summoned to the green room amid the clutter of props, trembled upon the settee, her auburn ringlets wilting, green eyes wide with trepidation. "Ma petite Amelia!" Poirot gentled his tone, yet incisive. "The affections of the heart can engender profound illusions. You cherished Elias beyond the footlights, no? Advances rebuffed, perhaps." Amelia's freckled cheeks flushed as she nodded, her voice a whisper. "I loved him futilely, his brilliance, his command. He rejected my overtures, deeming them folly. The pain, it shattered me." Her revelation of unrequited passion painted a portrait of vulnerability, yet her proximity to the apparatus suggested opportunity, or a masterful facade of innocence. Further inconsistencies in the timeline emerged like cracks in a mirror. Elias's demise fixed at 9:05 by his tampered wristwatch, its hands arrested in death's clasp, yet witnesses attested to the illusion's mechanics persisting until 9:15, implying deliberate manipulation to forge alibis. As dusk encroached, a chilling discovery pierced the air, a packet of saltwater taffy in Victor's lodgings, laced with a non-lethal emetic, untouched but ominous, a diversion to silence or frame him. Poirot, retreating to the pier's railing as lightning flickered on the horizon, contemplated the mosaic. The deceptive lights illuminate the motifs, he murmured, stroking his moustache. "Lydia's forged diary, Reginald's embezzlement, Harold's threats, Amelia's rejection, entwined like the pier's illuminations. Money for one, revenge for others, secrets binding all." The storm brewed, rain pattering tentatively, as the enigma swelled toward its thunderous climax. Chapter 4. The Gathering Storm. As the afternoon's deceptive luminescence yielded to the encroaching gloom of twilight over Starlight Pier, the estate, no, the pier itself, stirred under the weight of an impending tempest, its iron framework groaning faintly against the gusts that heralded the storm's arrival. The Irish Sea, now a churning cauldron of slate-grey waves, lashed at the pilings with unbridled fury, spray misting the promenade like the tears of some ancient maritime deity, lamenting the folly of mortals. The fairy lights, once beacons of merriment, now sputtered fitfully in the wind, casting erratic shadows that slithered across the wooden planks like serpents in pursuit of hidden prey. Holiday-makers had long since fled, their laughter supplanted by the desolate whistle of the breeze through the amusement's skeletal structures, the air thick with the ozone tang of approaching rain, and the faint acrid residue of extinguished fireworks. A poignant reminder that illusions, however dazzling, inevitably fade to darkness. Hercule Poirot, the indomitable Belgian detective, convened the suspects at the waning hour of 4 in the Pavilion Theatre's auditorium, the very arena where Elias Beaumont's life had been extinguished amid applause and artifice. The chamber, with its tiered seating shrouded in dust sheets and the stage now barren save for the ominous Sword of Destiny apparatus, veiled under tarpaulin, exuded an aura of foreboding solemnity. The footlights, dimmed to a sombre glow, illuminated the assembled company. Lydia's ethereal grace now edged with pallor, Victor's sinewy form taut with vigilance, Amelia's petite figure quivering like a leaf in the gale, Reginald's portly bulk shifting uneasily, and Harold's weathered stance as unyielding as the pier's foundations. As they occupied the front row, their faces a mosaic of apprehension and defiance. Poirot, positioned upon the stage with his compact frame emanating quiet authority, addressed them with a voice that resonated through the empty house like a thunderclap's prelude. "Mes amis," he declared, his accent a masterful cadence of revelation, "the gathering storm of this enigma draws nigh its vortex. Hidden motives, akin to the clouds amassing overhead, must now be pierced by the lightning of truth. Behold, the last will and testament of Elias Beaumont, procured from his solicitor via urgent missive from the mainland." With a theatrical flourish befitting the venue, Poirot unfurled the document, its parchment rustling like the wind through the eaves. Recited in his precise timbre, it unveiled stark disclosures. Victor Hale, revealed as Elias's estranged nephew, was disinherited entirely, his portion revoked due to accusations of plagiarism and moral turpitude, redirecting the illusionist's royalties and patents to Lydia. A clandestine addendum whispered of Elias's extramarital indiscretions, including a rumoured liaison with Amelia, scandalous intimations that elicited gasps, though Poirot promptly debunked the affair as baseless calumny, evidenced by forged correspondence unearthed in the prop's trunk. Red herrings proliferated like flotsam in the storm-tossed sea. A sailor's knife, etched with Harold Langley's initials from his naval days, was discovered wedged beneath the stage platform during a renewed search, seemingly incriminating, yet its blade pristine and unblooded, suggesting it had been planted in the interim to ensnare the unwitting. The crimson velvet fabric upon the sword hilt, compared to wardrobe samples, matched a tear in Lydia's evening cape, though the snag's pattern implied transference during the chaotic aftermath, a tantalizing diversion that muddied the investigative waters. Poirot's psychological incisions laid bare the soul's undercurrents, stripping away facades with surgical precision. Lydia's ethereal composure, so meticulously upheld, masked an emergent hysteria. Her violet eyes darted with the frenzy of a trapped bird, her porcelain hands betraying a tremor that bespoke a conscience assailed by revelations or remorse. Victor's brooding intensity concealed a profound insecurity. His grey eyes smouldered with the fire of unquenched ambition, his psychology a labyrinth of enmity twisted by familial betrayal. Amelia's vivacious facade veiled a burgeoning cunning. Her green eyes, though brimmed with tears, held a calculating glint, her unrequited affections potentially morphing into manipulative ploys. Reginald's jovial bluster hid abject fear. His florid cheeks paled at the will's pronouncements, his shrewd gaze faltering as the spectre of bankruptcy loomed, his opportunistic greed exposed. Harold's stoic maritime veneer betrayed simmering calculations. A fleeting sneer crossed his grizzled features when suspicions alighted elsewhere, his wrath a deep current capable of sudden surges. The disclosures gave way to an escalating incident that shattered the fragile armistice. As the group dispersed for a brief respite upon the promenade, under Wilkins' watchful eye, a sudden screech rent the air from the nearby Ferris wheel, its gondolas swaying perilously in the wind. Amelia, having ventured aboard for solitude, cried out as her carriage plummeted abruptly, halted mere feet from the planks by a snapped cable that whipped like a serpent. She stumbled forth, auburn ringlets dishevelled, freckled cheeks ashen. "Heavens! It gave way! Someone tampered with it!" Reginald exclaimed, rushing forward amid the gathering rain, his portly form heaving. Victor steadied her, his sinewy arms tense, while Harold muttered of cursed contraptions, and Lydia paled to translucence. Pandemonium ensued. Wilkins summoned reinforcements as Poirot examined the cable. Frayed with deliberate cuts, rigged with rudimentary malice, a staged peril, perhaps, to sow discord or eliminate a perceived threat. A deceptive gambit, Poirot opined, his green eyes gleaming amid the downpour, to entangle the web further or deflect the storm's fury. Seizing the tumult, Poirot conducted private probes in the theatre's wings. A shadowed nook redolent of grease paint and sawdust, the rain pattering upon the roof like accusatory fingers. To Lydia, seated rigidly upon a prop throne, "Madame, the velvet fragment upon the hilt, it aligns with your cape." An oversight in the chaos of discovery. Lydia's hysteria mounted. She faltered, her voice a quaver. "It must have been torn earlier, during the performance's preparations. I vow it." Yet her evasion rang false, her psychology revealing a woman ensnared by her own illusions, jealousy transmuting into desperate preservation. To Reginald, in the same shadowed seat, "The embezzled funds, monsieur, they illuminate your desperation. The will's redirection, opportune none." He blustered, sweat beading his brow. "I pilfered to keep the pier afloat, but sabotage? Preposterous!" Poirot discerned the fear in his florid tremble, his greed a motive veiled by bluster. The clues converged like tributaries into a maelstrom. The smudged prop latch's residue matched none of the suspect's prints, taken that morn for comparison. But its pattern implied deliberate obfuscation. Not an interloper, but an insider simulating one. The tainted taffy from the prior eve, analysed discreetly by Poirot with a rudimentary kit, contained traces of a laxative akin to Reginald's medicinal stores, yet non-fatal, a feint to disconcert rather than destroy. As night descended, the storm breaking in earnest with sheets of rain lashing the pier and thunder reverberating like cannonades, Poirot reconvened the group in the auditorium. The footlights flickered ominously, casting grotesque silhouettes upon the curtains. "The gathering storm resolves its fury," he proclaimed, his eyes alight with deductive fire. "Tomorrow, at dawn's first gleam, the truth shall break like the sun through these clouds. Until then, vigilance, for the illusionist of this murder treads among us still." The suspects dispersed, retreating to their lodgings with burdened spirits and watchful eyes. Whispers echoed through the gale-swept promenade. Alliances fracturing, as the enigma of the murder at Starlight Pier teetered upon the precipice of revelation. Outside, lightning illuminated the sea's fury, a harbinger of the disclosures to come, or the ultimate concealment of treachery's bitter slight. Chapter 5. The Final Revelation. As the tempest's fury abated with the advent of dawn over Starlight Pier, the edifice emerged from the night's deluge like a resilient sentinel, its iron framework glistening with rain-slicked patina, and the wooden promenades pooling with ephemeral mirrors that reflected the clearing sky. The Irish Sea, its wrath expended, now lapped gently at the pilings, the waves murmuring a lullaby of reconciliation, while the first rays of sun pierced the dissipating clouds, casting a golden luminescence upon the fairy lights that dangled limply, their deceptive cheer subdued by the ordeal. Holiday-makers, emboldened by the calm, began to trickle back, their footsteps tentative upon the damp planks. But the Pavilion Theatre remained cordoned, a sanctum of solemnity where the enigma's resolution awaited. The air, freshened by the storm, carried the mingled scents of ozone and seaweed, cleansing breath that promised the dispelling of illusions and the unveiling of truth. Hercule Poirot, the unflappable Belgian sleuth, summoned the suspects to the theatre's auditorium at the break of day, the chamber now bathed in the soft diffusion of morning light filtering through the domed skylights, its tiered seats echoing emptily with the ghosts of applause. The stage, stripped of its tarpaulin veils, stood stark with the sword of destiny apparatus as a mute accuser, its blade glinting ominously. The assembled company, Lydia's ethereal beauty now etched with weariness, Victor's sinewy frame coiled with tension, Amelia's petite form huddled in fragility, Reginald's portly bulk deflated by anxiety, and Harold's weathered visage as inscrutable as the sea, occupied the front pews, their countenances a tapestry of dread and anticipation. Poirot, ascending the stage with deliberate poise, his egg-shaped head held aloft, moustache impeccably waxed, and green eyes alight with the fire of deduction, addressed them in a voice that resonated through the hallowed space like the final act's crescendo. "Mes amis," he proclaimed, his accent a harmonious orchestration of revelation and resolve. "The storm has passed, and with it the veils of deception that shrouded this heinous act. The murder of Elias Beaumont, that virtuoso of illusions whose feats beguiled the multitudes, was no capricious mishap, but a meticulously contrived finale of malice. We have navigated the labyrinth of clues, physical remnants such as the velvet scrap and muddied footprints, psychological dissonances in evasions and behaviors, timeline aberrations that twisted like the pier's serpentine shadows, and hidden motives lurking in the depths of avarice, vengeance, and scorned affections. Now, Hercule Poirot shall deliver the final revelation, shattering the illusions to lay bare the culprit. He paced the boards with measured elegance, his patent leather shoes echoing softly, his gaze sweeping the assembly like a spotlight exposing hidden flaws. Let us recapitulate the illusory symphony's movements. The method, impalement with his own sword, tampered to lethality, a prestidigitator's end, poetic in its cruelty, demanding intimacy with the apparatus and access to the wings. The scene, the stage amid the throng, yet suggestive of infiltration through smudged latches and under-pier ascents, a masterful misdirection of externality. The suspects, each ensnared by motive as compelling as a magician's pact. Poirot turned first to Lydia, her violet eyes meeting his with a flicker of defiance. Madame Beaumont, your jealousy was a venomous slight. Elias's flirtations, his eclipsing fame, the will enriching you with royalties. The forged diary, the velvet from your cape, yet your love, though frayed, endured. Your hysteria bespoke genuine grief, not guilt. Non, you are not the architect of this fatal illusion. Lydia's porcelain shoulders relaxed infinitesimally, a sigh, escaping like the release of a held breath. Next Reginald, his florid cheeks paling further in the morning light. Monsieur Croft, your greed was a bankrupt trick, debts mounting, Elias's demands draining your coffers. The embezzled funds, the proximity to the rigging, yet your opportunism, while craven, lacked the audacity for murder. Your fear stayed your hand from the blade. Reginald exhaled heavily, his shrewd blue eyes softening with reluctant relief. Poirot's scrutiny alighted upon Amelia, her petite form quivering, green eyes brimmed with trepidation. Ma petite Amelia, your unrequited passion was a poignant misdirection. Adoration spurned, the tainted taffy a diversion aimed at you. The footprints matching your boots, planted as red herring, yet your fragility, both corporeal and sentimental, precluded the brute cunning required. Your tears veil innocence, not artifice. Amelia buried her freckled face in her hands, sobs racking her like the storm's aftershocks. Captain Harold Langley stood rigidly, his grizzled beard twitching, black eyes unblinking. Captain Langley, your wrath was a seafaring grudge, swindled investments, threats like tempests. The planted knife, the under-pier knowledge, yet your honour, forged in naval gales, proved unyielding. Your vengeance would be overt, not cloaked in shadows. Harold inclined his weathered head, a flicker of vindication in his piercing gaze. Finally, Poirot pivoted toward Victor Hale, whose sinewy frame tensed like a spring-loaded trap, grey eyes smouldering with barely contained fury, his hawkish features hardening. Ah, Monsieur Hale, the rival whose motive outshines all, not mere professional discord, but a profound familial betrayal. Revealed as Elias's nephew, disinherited for your plagiarisms, illusions he pilfered from your youth, patented as his own. But deeper, his blackmail via purloined letters, exposing your youthful indiscretions that could shatter your precarious career. Victor's brooding gaze narrowed to slits, his voice a venomous hiss. Conjecture, Poirot! You conjure phantasms without substance. Au contraire, Poirot countered, his moustache curling with triumphant acuity, his green eyes gleaming like emeralds in the dawn. The clues coalesce against you. The sword tampered with your specialized tool. A lockpick disguised as a wand, found in your kit, its scratches matching the mechanism. Entry via the sea ladder beneath the pier. Knowledge from your reconnaissance during prior rivalries. The muddied prints bearing your boot's distinctive wear. The footprint falsified with Amelia's boot, a red herring sewn in haste. The watch reset to fabricate alibis, your prestidigitation at play. And the fatal flourish, a button from your performance cape, clutched in Elias's dying grasp, concealed in his palm until my grey cells perceived its import. embroidered with your initials, torn in the brief scuffle as he recognized his betrayer. The auditorium fell into a profound hush, broken only by the distant lap of waves and the patter of lingering rain upon the dome. Victor paled, his sinewy composure fracturing like a shattered mirror. "Curse your infernal acuity, Poirot! He stole my illusions, my inheritance, blackmailed me with those damned letters from our shared past. I confronted him backstage, demanded restitution. He laughed, the charlatan, and the sword was at hand, its safety disengaged by my tool." His confession erupted, a torrent of pent rancour and regret, his grey eyes flashing with the storm's residue. Constable Wilkins stepped forward, manacles clinking in the morning light, as Victor was led away, his defiance ebbing into defeat. The assembly dispersed, the theatre's oppressive shroud lifting with the ascending sun. Poirot lingered upon the stage, his fingers tracing the apparatus idly, gazing out through the windows at the calming sea. The human soul, it weaves its own illusions, he philosophized softly, his voice a murmur amid the echoes. Ambition, betrayal, the pursuit of applause amid shadows, such is the fatal sleight of life. As the day unfolded, Starlight Pier exhaled its enigmas, the murder's shadow dissipating into memory. Lydia, heiress to the illusions, contemplated a future unshackled. Reginald, chastened, vowed fiscal reform. Amelia sought solace in new ventures. Harold reclaimed his peace with the sea. The illusionist's legacy endured, a cautionary tableau in the annals of deception. Thus the curtain descended upon the murder at Starlight Pier, justice resounding in Poirot's masterful revelation.